Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 68 of Competitive Magic with the Carnies. I'm your host from Italy, Andrea Mengucci, and joining me, as always, we have Javier Dominguez from Spain.
Hello everyone.
And Anthony Lee from Australia.
Hola.
We have a great news to show you. That is my very good friend Marco Del Pivo winning the regional championship in Ghent. And I can very well and safely say that from the Carnies, we want to do a big round of applause to Pivo for this great achievement.
Very much so. I always tell Pivo, I've been telling Pivo for a long time that he is the greatest player of Italy. And now he has cemented that. So it's great,
yes.
Great to see, you know.
That's actually true. Like, you know,
Yes.
It's not the classic saying it afterwards.
Yeah, I've been saying it the whole time, since Philadelphia.
Back to back, actually.
Yeah.
Proto top 8, winning the RC.
Wow.
Same deck, Timur Rhinos. At the time, he just picked it up before the PT in Barcelona, but now it's, definitely tested a lot for this event, came with a very good list, and also he shared a article on his Twitter, so definitely make sure to check out the deep dive that he wrote. Actually, I watched him writing it on the plane and then fixing it all on the train, so it was he definitely spent a lot of time there, as well as, of course, all the work done beforehand with the testing team. So again, congratulations to Pivo. It was very good. Yes. Actually, I watched the event from live. Like, I was there watching the event, and I have to say that watching the event live, you don't follow the game at all. You just root and see the vibes going around because you can't see anything going on.
Yeah, it's more like games are like you're there just with your friends. Like if you want to watch the game itself, it's probably better to watch it on the phone in the coverage, and then if your friend wins, just go hug or something. But it's a different experience, right? It's just like more human think. You're there with your friends rooting.
They don't have the screens at the
now.
RC? Like, you know, like at the PT, there's the player lounge. Like, do they not have something like that?
Yeah. No, they had it. They had it for sure. In the next to the Ultimate Guard booth, they had some screen with the coverage, and even in the VIP area. But I just stayed very close to Pivo, like next to the feature match, and yeah, I guess
Well, the screens are not where you are, right? So
Yeah,
that's the thing. You have to pick either the screen or just be there with your friend, and you can easily see being with friends a more unique thing in a way.
For sure. Also, like, his top 8 was really out of nowhere because, like, he picked up a loss at some point. He started the tournament 7-2, the day 2, and he picked up a loss, and we thought that at X3 you were out of top 8 contention, and, certainly
you told me
you
that.
didn't have great tiebreakers.
You scammed me.
So like, everybody thought that Pivo was out. He even messaged a chat with Zen saying, "Oh no, I'm out. I'm gonna draw the last round and into whatever prize." And then I was playing a side event, so I didn't even know what was going to happen. And then I played like this 1 hour long side event round because I went to time and etc. And then I picked up a phone and there's a missed call from Pivo, and he messaged, "I top 8'd."
In 8th place from Italy.
Yeah, exactly.
True,
like, they even
that's an
announced
actual
it.
true 8th place from Italy. Yeah.
Yes, they even announced it, but I guess I was very focused in my side event that I didn't even.
You didn't know.
I didn't even hear
it.
Yeah, so I went to check it out, and they were taking the pictures, and I saw him and Martos, and I was like, yeah, it was crazy. Like when I just definitely didn't expect it. So it was kind of weird, I think, because he was on table 7, and there was he played on table 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a couple of draws, like the one on table 6, that maybe table 6 should have played. Instead, they draw into the PT invite, and that freed a slot. And also the table after Pivo also drew.
Okay, well that's
So
very
that
understandable.
freed
If they play, the loser doesn't get to the PT, right?
Well, that's not technically true because some people, like plenty of people with X4, not plenty, sorry, actually, 3 people only with X4 got the PT invite.
But you can understand not wanting to.
Okay, that's interesting. So what will you guys do? Like, let's say you're there, you are, on 10-3 or whatever, 11-3, whatever it's called. So if you ID, you go to the PT, and if you win, you make the top 8. And if you lose, you're out of the PT. I think I will ID.
You should definitely draw.
I will. I will draw. I will draw in this spot. Like, I don't think it's weird. I will actually draw.
It's not even even if people tell you that the math is probably this way, I would still draw if there was less risk that something might go wrong. Like, I think the PT invite is worth so much more, but especially for the first one of a cycle, because if you qualify for the first PT, your odds at making worlds that way are a lot better as well. Like,
yeah, you just need to do a fine PT, right?
Yeah, like
yes, but
how can you not draw? I don't know.
Okay, remember that Pivo though was one of the very few people that already had a Pro Tour invite to Seattle.
Well, it's different.
No,
for him.
absolutely.
I'm
No.
talking about the other people.
If you people, you don't draw. No, if you people, you definitely don't draw. I'm talking if you are other
Yeah.
people that are not qualified.
Yeah, you're saying
I
table
actually
6.
feel, I think table 6 specifically. I mean, that obviously opened the spot for people, right? That's how it looks. But like, if you're them, I mean, I think drawing is good. Like, I will draw.
I very strongly
That's my
agree. Like,
impression. I don't think. Winning the tournament is worth. Like, winning the tournament, like, you have to win 3 rounds in a row to qualify for Worlds or something.
2.
I think that's just like too ambitious.
Yes,
Like-
but remember that there's also a lot of money on the line. The top 8 has a lot of money on the line in this tournament. Like, if you draw into 24th, you win like an amount of money, like $200, $400.
That's
the top 8 is.
Okay,
Like,
that's actually a
just
thing
different
as well.
But like, that's just like a
No, I
specific
know.
priority. Like, maybe some people value the PT invite a lot more because of the the intangible value to them. Like, I would just never say that they should or shouldn't draw or not. Like, they have specific priority, and I think it makes a lot of sense for them to prioritize
Right,
the safety
because
of
for
the PT invite.
economic value, what's the first prize money?
$16,000.
I don't know.
16. I mean, that's actually large is compared to the PT, right? Like, that's a third of winning a PT.
But like, money is just
So-
not like, it just has different value to different people. Like,
No, obviously, but like I'm saying, like it's just a question of like, well, you could actually kind of calculate how much money you're sacrificing for a drawing here, right?
yeah,
That's something you can calculate. So that will be the amount of money you're paying to secure the PT slot, and then you will have to compare that with how much
you value
the
it,
PT slot, and just do whatever's bigger. Yeah,
I mean, in theory you can do that, but in practice it's very hard to make this calculation in real time.
For sure.
You just don't get time to
And,
make it.
you know,
I mean, it's not that hard, right? It's just like 50% of the top 8 equity. Like, you calculate
Well,
top
like,
8 equity and just
Well,
half
it's
it
not flat.
by
Like,
times
you
2.
don't have equal chances of winning each matchup.
Well, assuming you are sort of like a 50%-ish.
Okay, there you
I think
go.
that's roughly
Let's
You
enough.
can
assume-
count with that.
let's assume that if you lose, you're out. Because, for example, Pivo's opponent, Luca Martino, finished, unfortunately, 26th, so out of the PT invite. So it is definitely a very, we honestly, just not being there, you can't really say now
Yeah, that's how I feel.
what you would have done.
Well, I will have
but,
drawn. I
would
can
have
tell you, I
drawn
will
it.
have. If I'm table
Yeah.
6, I will have drawn. Yes, I will.
Okay. What if you are playing Rhinos against Yogmoth?
I think I will have drawn in virtually
I would
every
still
matchup.
draw, like-
that's like, yeah. I think it's not very matchup dependent for me in this situation. I just feel like the risk of not playing the PT is like too high.
Yeah,
and
the
also
fail
PT
rate
has
is just
a lot
too
of
bad. Like,
personal value.
It's just so bad.
But let's say it's a good matchup. It's a 40-60, right? 40 of dying is a lot.
40-60
anyway.
for sure.
Even
Yeah.
if it's
Yeah,
worse
like
than
40 of things going bad is a lot, It's almost 0.5% of things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so-
definitely money thing, but like, what's the top price? Like 2K or something like this? I don't know.
I don't remember, but yeah, anyway, Pivo came in from the 8th place, so he started playing on the draw every round. First match against Steven Minelli, mirror match. He won. And by the way, Carnies, do you know that Pivo tested with Makuto, and both of them played against 5 Teamer Rhinos decks, so 5 mirror match, and they went a combined of 10-0.
Wow, that's quite
So
something.
they probably solved the mirror.
Yeah, and so yeah, and then he beat two Yawgmoth player in a row, Daniel Toledo to win the World's Invite, and Bora Hannes Carvajal to win the whole thing. So again, super congrats to Vivo, super happy. Yeah, just super happy, and it was
It's kind of wild
definitely an amazing.
for him to have come from
Do you remember?
he wasn't even, he had to LCQ into the very first RC, and then from not even being qualified for the first RC, he played all 3 PTs and Worlds for the first 2 years of the paper system coming
Yeah.
back. Like that's really something. It's kind of what people would dream of.
Yeah, and it's also like we're talking about like a player that, you know, it's not by any meaning like one of those like, you know, student that has like infinite times and grinds infinite time. Like he has a job, like he plays in his free time while having a, you know, very quite important job. So just yeah, it's definitely inspiring to kind of like anyone that wants to succeed in competitive Magic nowadays.
Yeah, I think so. And he's also not like a super genius or something, you know. Like he just applies himself.
Yeah.
And he's very open minded.
Definitely.
And I think
for sure
that's what, because Pivo, like when he started, it wasn't like it was like a walk in the park either, but he has improved very substantially every PT from what I can tell. And I think that's in a way like almost more impressive than someone who just comes in and just destroys everything, you know. Like Pivo is really like kind of the people's champion in my mind, more so than almost anyone else I can think of. So
nice.
Yeah.
If you remember when we did the wrap-up episode of 2023, I said how it was a pleasure to watch Calc win because, you know, when you're there, you don't quite enjoy as much as watching a very best friend of yours winning. So I got to live that this past weekend in the semifinals and finals, and it was very fun.
Sweet.
Okay, so let's
maybe
talk
we can
about
watch Anthony win Chicago.
I wouldn't.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about how did the events go. Like the there's some very good stats that I talked in my January Power Rankings video that I want to share with you here, and that is a very cool stats by Sierkovitz, which is a map that says players with 10 wins or more, and then expected players at 10 wins or more. So it's like...
Okay, that's an interesting stat.
Yeah, I think it's a very good stats. And it basically tells you, I think you can easily read from this, the overperformer and the underperformer of this weekend in Ghent. So we have Timur Rhinos as the best performing deck with, I believe... 20 players going with 10 wins or more, and out of the 15 of expected, based on how many players were in the event. And then we had Golgari Yawgmoth, and then we had Amulet Titan. Those 3 decks vastly overperformed. I would say that Golgari Yawgmoth actually performed better than Timur Rhinos, because there was an expected number of players with 10 wins or more of 11, and instead there was 19 players who made 10 wins or more.
Right? Like, I'm not familiar with this kind of stats specifically, but this story tells like Golgari was just the deck to play in the tournament.
Yes,
that's
how
it looks.
When it comes to stats, I think there's like a lot of numbers and you kind of overloaded on them. But this is the one that honestly stuck with me the most. Golgari Yawgmoth was 3 copies of the top 8, and I think another very important stats of Golgari Yawgmoth is that its bad matchup, its worst matchup, happens to be the most popular deck. So, to me, this tells me how good is the deck, because, you know...
It is very good.
You're bet against the most popular deck, yet you outperform the field. And I don't remember something like this happening to a format, and I think that it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's not common, because usually when this is the case, that a deck is good, that much, but against everything so much, it actually becomes the most popular deck, and then, you know, a new predator kind of like, you know, rises to attack that deck and such. But I guess Modern is balanced in that regard with the few decks we talked about last week. But I mean, definitely did not expect Jamov to be this ahead in numbers.
Yeah,
when I was testing, definitely Yoggomoth was always the most challenging deck to play against. I guess also because I was playing Murktide, but that's another story. So yeah, and the other deck that definitely outperformed the presence was Amulet Titan, as we expected, right? We did expect these three decks to be. I mean, I personally expected Golgari, Yawgmoth, and Amulet Titan to be super popular at the high table. They were, but actually 0 Amulet players managed to convert to the top 8. There was one in the 10th place, which happens to be the second trophy leader on Magic Online in Modern, so that's kind of cool. Chris MTG. There was definitely another stats. Of course, let's look at the opposite side of the medal. So the decks that underperformed. So the decks that were expected to have players at 10 more wins, but didn't actually have them. So we have Rakdos Grief, who had a pretty tremendous win rate of 45% in the event.
It was a scam.
It was a scam indeed. It was the second most popular deck, and it did very poorly. And then we have, amongst the popular deck, kind of tied for how bad they did, Is it Murktide and Hardened Scales. It is honestly no surprise. I don't think Murktide ever put a percentage of above 50% in any tournament, yet people still get trapped by playing it, just like myself. Not too much to say other than... people just play Murktide because they think they can be the one exception, but
and for Color Omnath apparently did fine. It's probably just because it's precisely good against Jammoth and Rhinos, even though it's bad overall, right? That's the read here.
I think if I read the stats correctly, because again, if you look at the previous stats, that's the expected players with 10 wins or more. Well, for Color Omnath, didn't do well. It was supposed to have more players with 10 wins or more, but they didn't. So despite you see here, oh look, 4-color Omnath has 52.8, that just means that a bunch of players went slightly above average.
Also, the wins went
9-7
didn't.
Well, yeah.
So you will say Omnath was a 9-7 deck?
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to say.
Right. I got it right finally.
If you scroll... if you scroll down the names of the deck, the first 4-color Omnath is Respect the Cat with his Kiruga version of the deck at the 38th place.
I mean, that's actually a fine result, right? That's one win away from top 8 or PT, whatever.
It is a fine result, but unfortunately you get a bunch of nothing because top 36 requalified to the next RC, and I believe, I guess he won like $200, which is kind of crazy because he had an amazing, 11-4.
Yeah,
that's
it seems like
it's
a little bit tied on the stat. Like, I just feel like the prices situation, like in the structure, does not feel right. Like, so you have situations where you can ID into the PT or top 8, but also you have here like one win literally between top 8 and not even qualifying for the next RC. And that's, I don't know, it just seems like a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, we keep on
at least qualify for the RC. Like, I don't know, like this could be on points.
It's honestly kind of sad to see how hard it is to get there. And again, you have to qualify to this event. I guess this is a free event with a lot of money on the line, so that's cool. Like, it's a free GP that you qualify to. So
but you have to pay the qualifier, so it's not free anymore. Like, you pay the fee by paying the qualifiers.
Yeah, that's true.
So you actually do not play this for free. It's basically a GP you have to qualify for.
Yes. The current system is that you play at your LGS and you qualify to a GP, and you have to top 24. I
think the system is good. I'm just saying, like it just seems like there's a little bit too much people for. At least, I understand the PT slots are very premium, so at some point there's going to be an issue. But the RC slots for next one, you have in a 1,000-player tournament regardless. Like, you can just throw like 6 more invites here, right? Which honestly does not change things as much.
Yeah,
but by doing so, you at least give these players like a It's like 7 slots more, right?
I would clarify. I
whatever.
mean, from Wizards' perspective, I believe that adding invites is more high impact than you would assume for logistical reasons. So it's not so much about the direct value of each invite, but that the marginal cost of adding additional invites starts to stack up. So you add 6 invites here and 6 invites there. It's more than adding 12 invites.
Well, I'm saying like for the RC because it's.
Yeah,
I think invites for the PTR are extremely expensive because these as you just said. But here, you only card it to the same RC itself, right?
Well,
so it's not like the 6 are gonna generate 6 more. It's just like 6 stale because the next one will have 6 more.
I would say that perhaps the solution is it's more similar to what they do in Japan, which is the opposite of what you're suggesting. Where in Japan, there are more qualifying rounds, so the RC is inherently much smaller, which creates that. So it's less disproportionate in terms of the top prizes compared to the size of the overall field, which I think is what.
Sorry, can you explain again what they do in Japan?
Well, Japan obviously has a completely absurd number of players, so you have to qualify twice. Like you don't win one RCQ and qualify. You win basically an RCQ that qualifies you for another qualifier, and then if you win that qualifier, you can play. Or if you're successful in that qualifier, there's just another layer.
So let's say, no, I know, but like let's say you play at your store, you qualify to
an area
what,
qualifier.
like 1,000 people. 1,000 people? An area qualifier.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
like a big PTQ.
Yeah, like
so let's say you qualify to the. Let's say like the Italian count, whatever the Italian.
That's actually fine. Like I think that will work here also. Like
you just have to shrink the
RC, like a big qualifier in Spain or whatever. Yeah, like I just feel like this RC. Looking at the structure and the slots and the such, this might just be too large.
I think it is, and that is a function of organizers, allowing the events to be very large, and maybe that's something that people enjoy. But for example, I think the way the Japanese have done it is probably a lot more efficient. I think it's also just more manageable. Like running
so cheaper
event.
for logistics. Like if you don't qualify on the big one, you save a lot of money because you don't have to go there. Assuming the same equity. Like I might as well just play the qualifier in my area.
Yep.
And if I win, I'm going to play a small tournament where I have a lot of equity and a large percentage of getting there instead of like this like 8 out of 1K or something.
I was thinking about another option. What do you think about you had 900 people in this tournament? What if instead of having only one, you have like 3 different regional champ and you have to choose which one you want to go? So ideally you have like 3 of 300 with 8 invite each. What do you think of that?
Well, it's kind of like a little bit of the same in terms of like, well, I guess it's better. The issue is though the last cut is being too far. Like this step has too many people, right? Like I think I like the Japanese more. That one will not be as different. Like you will have to go to a 350 with 8 slots only.
It's also
which will create another issue.
It also sounds incredibly expensive for the organizer.
Also
that sounds unlikely to be viable.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can always like organize other things in the. I mean, yeah, that's okay. I understand. And there is going to be a different organizer for Europe, by the way. It's going to be Tournament Center, the last one of this cycle. So we'll see. Maybe things will change from this current system. The next RC will be in Naples, and I'm sure there will be less people than this though, because the RC Modern were very popular, and
of course, I
don't know. I'm expecting less for the next one, but we will see.
That'll be good to see.
On the other side of the world, there was also another regional championship in Brazil that had a total different story than the one in Europe. We had 4
like the opposite story.
Wow.
Yes, we had
literally
4.
Opposite.
So if Rakdoscam had a 44 win percentage in Ghent in Europe, in Brazil there was 4 Rakdoscam, and the winner was Rastaf, the one that kind of popularized the deck again after Marilu won the LMS in Barcelona, and he got the job done with his deck with Rakdoscam. So congratulations to Rastaf, and maybe the European players need to play this deck better.
I don't know if this is elitist, but I always feel it's kind of nice when you see like a name player win, especially across multiple tournaments. Like you see like the winner of the European RC was a known player, Marco Del Pivo, and the winner of the Brazilian one was Rastaf. Like I think that's cool. Like it kind of shows that that there's I just got distracted because you looked at the metagame breakdown and I saw the name Jeskai Minotaurs. What was it saying? Like it shows that there's more legitimacy to it, I suppose, maybe? No, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's kind of cool that you can see like players that are just excellent, right? It gives you something to strive for, that you can be that player that... Because it's not that many name players relative to the entire field, right? Like, out of all the names that I would recognize easily, out of the Brazilian RC, not being a Brazilian myself, then it's very impressive that, out of the few that I would know, that it was one of them that won. And same thing in the European RC. Like, I obviously don't know however many people out of the 900 or so, but when it's one that is good and they win, that's, you're like, oh, there's something special there, and maybe I could be like that. It's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the win percentage of the Brazilian RC, again, very much different than the European one, with Gogari Yogmoth on 45 win percentage. And but there's a constant in that, is a Merc that is always below 50%. That's the
How does it
flip?
How can two decks
everything flips except is that just proving the results count?
Yeah, everything flips except Murktide and Hammer Time, which are always unreasonably popular and constantly below 50%.
But that is really interesting to me. Like that really, like what are the other factors that can cause that to flip? Like, is the metagame, is the field very different? I don't think it is, though, is it? Like, the popular decks are still the popular decks. Like, what's going on here?
Well, we could say some things. Like, the first thing being maybe the...
Of course, yes.
The variance is just like, it's just easy to... Like, we're talking about, like, 100 matches sample size. That's just, like, actually not that much or whatever. Like, the scores are, like, 90-70. A few top decks one way or the other. Now it's, like, suddenly 3% less, and that's it. Mm-hmm. I wonder how much of this is like, because we know Rastaf has been champion in the deck.
Yes.
And we know he's a fairly influential player in Brazil. Mm-hmm. So there's also maybe a little bit of this, like a known player championing a deck will actually maybe make a lot of the best players in the region to actually pick up the deck as well, which could skew, like this.
So it becomes a selection bias.
The selections toward I'm just looking for a plausible explanation. I think that might be one for this. Like, just imagine like a country, like where, let's say there's a tournament in Italy, Mango plays a deck a lot, and he wins a lot with it. Maybe there's more players in that tournament with that deck, for example. So I'm just wondering, that could be a thing.
There's a genuine networking effect there, I believe, that exists.
I think there might be, and also I don't know in terms of the ERC in Europe. I'm not sure, but also you throw a few individuals in a tournament, even if it's somewhat large, the actual impact, right? Like if you cut, I don't know, people's group from the Rhinos, I'm pretty sure it will have way less win rate, right? So it's actually like the impact of certain people also have like.
Well, I definitely noticed that because I scroll like through the list and try to find names that I know, or players that I particularly I'm interested in what they submitted. Because even if they don't do well, the fact that they chose to submit it means something to me, And I did notice a lot of the names that I picked up on were all playing Rhinos and Yawgmoth. They definitely skewed very strongly towards these decks. So
exactly, but it can also happen in the other way around in Brazil with the scam, right? And that's if this happens. I mean, on top of variance, which obviously is involved there easily, it can also be a thing, I will say. Yeah.
Definitely. Play a deck that you know, huh? And that is good.
Well, yeah, but if you know a deck that's a scam, well, they still win anyway, apparently.
Well, but then maybe it's just good. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, like it's good, but you have to know.
Yeah, but
like
maybe it's not that. Things. Yeah, but it's not that it didn't play it in Europe. It was the second most popular deck.
Maybe they didn't know how to play it as well as the Brazilians did. I don't know. Like, it's possible.
Yeah, maybe.
It's actually possible. Like, sure. That's Anthony's point about like most people we know more were playing like Yawgmoth or Rhinos or whatever. That's actually a thing. I don't know. Actually, I will have to think more about it.
We had a very large testing team. We tested a lot for over a month, and a lot of people started with Scam, also myself, and then we just went off of it because we didn't like it, because we thought it wasn't good. And at the end, I believe only one player played Scam at the end in our like very large testing team, where everyone else just played, very good deck.
Sure, but maybe if you'd stuck with it, you would still have won a lot. Or maybe if you'd stuck further with the deck during testing, you might have played it and then still won a lot. Like, maybe that's what happened in Brazil. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. I have no idea what. I mean, I know what happened firsthand with the European team, but I don't know if that's the case with the Brazilian team. But I think it's very plausible.
Yeah.
Like it's like we don't know. We don't have the
also don't know
counterfactual.
if they work together. This could also
we just
be
don't
a
know.
group of 7 players just taking the tournament by storm, right?
Yeah, like what if it's just the same thing that you did, but for the Brazilian event? It's very possible.
Yeah, like having a deck that's very well built and very well crafted in plans actually impacts a lot. Like we should probably have to look at the Brazilian lists a little bit, but if some of them are actually like the same, I would not be surprised if some of these players actually work together or whatever. Like if that would be the case, well, that's
the first
easy,
two people
this
in
explanation.
the 7-1 people in the standings had the same list.
Well,
So-
assuming they play the same exact 75, I will expect that to not be exactly a coincidence.
Well, also the 4th and the 5th in the Swiss seems to have the same list with the 2 Bone Crusher Giant main
Yeah.
deck ready for the mirror match too. So
Also, it's kind of
it seems
funny.
like the 4.
We
Yeah,
in
the
Handshake we
same-
call
same
the
deck.
black red decks Brazilian because BR, right? So it's
BR,
same as the country
yeah.
code for Brazil. So we instead of saying Rakdos, we often say Brazilian. Like instead of Rakdos midrange, we say Brazilian midrange. Look at the Brazilian RC. It's like all these Brazilian decks.
So they actually play the same deck, Mengu? That's
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
These
I
guys
mean-
might actually be like kind of teaming of friends together. Like what
Some
if
sort of
imagine
connection.
they just like. Imagine they have a connection and there's like a group of 10 people playing this deck and then you just put 4 in top it.
Like they just
like-
know how to. They just
Yeah.
figure stuff out. They made good plans with the deck, etc. And
I
and
mean,
they're just among the best also and they just crush the tournament.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
just
if you're-
skyrockets to the winner of a deck.
Yeah.
And that would be the case for any team, any situation. Like, like if you put a good team compared to the field and they just do well because they're good and have good plans, that's going to skyrocket
remember
the deck's win rate.
the 3 Spanish guys at the RC in Lille with Lotus Field.
Yeah.
With the same deck
Yeah.
with this continuity all in the
Yeah,
top
yeah.
8,
Those things
top
happen,
16,
again in a tournament. They keep happening in all kind of tournaments, but I think this could be what is happening here.
Mhm. That's cool. So yeah, if you have to play Rakdos Grief, maybe don't be what's the word? Like don't be
discouraged.
discouraged exactly from these European RC result, and maybe look at the Brazilian one.
Well,
and
yeah.
pick
I mean,
that list.
It's just
and
like
try it.
the popular win rates, like the result win rates can tell you some things, but it should never tell you to like, well, you should definitely not play the deck because that's the average win rate, right? So if you're
course.
hoping or trying to have better plans than your opponents, you don't know how that will actually impact the win rate. So I mean, I will
Yeah.
obviously proceed with caution if I had to play like a tournament with a scam, but by any means, I will imply that's not the deck you should
Avoid.
not play.
I don't know.
with
For
well.
example, Javier, maybe you wanna say something about Marto's result, right? Because well, you have
he
you
played with my cards. That's what I'm going to
Yes,
say.
exactly. That's
These
why-
strong cards are completely blessed.
Yes, so I wanted to say that, Martos told me that he was between Scam and Murktide a lot, and every time you guys are having lunch together, you always try to make him play Tron. And
I mean, he
Yeah,
asked me
so-
like, "What would you play?" I said, "I will play Tron." That's it. Like, it was not that long of a conversation, but like, I will just have to play Tron in this tournament. Like, I will actually play this list. That's the
yes,
list we talked through.
yeah, I streamed
in the lunch
I streamed
and-
this deck. I streamed the deck this morning. I beat 2 Team Rhino's deck very, very easily. Yeah, this was good. And
Well, if we're going to talk about this, there's a lot of subtle things going on here. I don't know if that's
So-
what you wanted to hear.
yeah, I saw that you changed from your Pro Tour second place list very little, right? Just a relic for a star.
No, we actually made some structural changes. Like, for example,
What happened?
the Scrying got back, like the fourth
Yes,
Scrying
yes.
is back, and
Fourth
the second
Silver
star is
Scrying.
also back into the deck. And this is just because we got, like, let's say if we have the Ultron on the 0 level and the 10 on aggressively cutting enablers, our PT deck, I wanted to bounce back a little bit. Like, I wanted to deck the deck a little bit more like the old Tron and a little bit less like the new Tron, because the metagame was moving in a direction where we actually do not want to midrange as much. And the games where we actually want to midrange, we can just bank on the Ursa Saga to do the heavy lifting. So there were matchups like Amulet where it doesn't matter what you do. What you want to do is to Tron as fast as you can, as consistently as you can, right? You're going to go like Star, Scrying, Tron. and that's all we want to do, because you're never going to win by just putting tokens with Saga, or just like mid-ranging turn 3 1 ring with, like 2 Tron lands that they are the same and the such. So we actually removed a lot of the like middle ground cards, or even the matchup dependent cards like Karn, because they were mirror was not expected. Like I definitely have not expected Tron in this tournament. And the thing is, same with Yavmoth, right? Against Yavmoth, you ideally want to be as traditional Tron as you can be. So that's why the wild cards were cut to just have more turn 3 Trons, which might sound obvious, but that was not exactly the goal for the PT deck. But it was the goal for this weekend's deck, because, I think these changes, I mean, they're probably like not as easy to see because you actually didn't notice them on the first sight, but they actually change a little bit of the structure of the deck, at least on a conceptual level. And that's the direction I wanted to take. I wanted to be like, all right, we figured out how much we're going to stretch the Tron's legs so it can still run, but now want to, make the legs a little bit stronger just because these reasons. Like Yavmoth matchup, for example, where you actually like don't want to mid-range as much, but you want to speed to just, not have vulnerabilities to cards like the Cauldron and such. And so that's mostly the thing, right? But I think it's a well thought thing. I think like it's not randomly put scrying back.
Right. So something that I want to highlight, well, a couple of things I want to highlight. So the first thing is that although they look like minor changes, these changes do impact a lot more than you would think in Tron. Specifically, so like Javier identified that there are structural changes, but it might be unintuitive as to why. But because of the way that Tron mulligans, you just see way more cards early on, which is why like changing like 1 scrying and 1 star are a lot more meaningful than you would expect changing 2 cards in another deck. So I think that might be the difference in how someone might perceive how large a difference is. But also, I think on a macro level, I would identify that the reason that we would build Tron differently now to the way that we would build Tron in Barcelona is that the format is generally faster now. I think something that like the general direction of the format is to be faster once you remove Fury and up the Beanstalk from the format. So like our goal in Barcelona was to try to build a Tron deck that was capable of playing slightly more fairly with the cards like Dismember, but we moved back a little more in the traditional direction once the format becomes faster, the same way that Modern has historically been. So like you remove an incentive to play answers from the format and you remove an answer from the format becomes faster, so you build Tron to be faster as a result, I think. So I think that's how it intuitively makes sense to me, I would say. Like instead of framing in terms of, I mean, you can frame it in terms of specific matchups, but to try to relate things more generally, that's
it's also one thing here is like the format being fast calls for like how much speed you want to have. Like in terms of Magic, even if you play like a combo deck or whatever, like being faster often comes with a cost in terms of like stability, top decks or whatever. Like you should try to aim at build your decks at the actual speed you're aiming. Like this is not like, well, I'm always going to try to be faster or always going to try to be like more consistent. That's not necessarily the case. And they're often related to be good things, like your deck is faster or your deck is more stable, but more stable doesn't mean always it has better win rate. So here we actually went that direction, even though, for the PT, which is the opposite direction.
And fundamentally, your speed is relative to your opponents, so like that's why that can be dynamic over time as well, I would say.
True, Axel. More so in Modern,
Yes.
where you can actually just manipulate the speed a little bit by like mulliganing.
Yes.
Like you can do just in game, you can sacrifice like value for speed very easily by mulliganing slow hands. So it's not like you have to be that extreme at doing so like in the deck building stage, because if you do it in the building stage, you might lose flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, so
they're connected for sure.
Yeah, there's also an Itset Breach deck. Let's also have a look at that one.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one last question about the Tron. What is the Torpor? Because I saw that you had the Torpor Orb. Was it for Amulet Titan?
Yeah, well, Torpor Orb is definitely for Amulet. Like, it's designed to be a one you can just, like, fire on the turn 3 Karn, so you don't die to as many things. Like, it's basically a card that they have to deal with, and they will, but it's very hard for them to actually just enable the things and kill the Torpor Orb. Like, if you go turn 3 Karn, Torpor Orb, then you can just do other things. Like, sometimes the Lucky Metal Calling or whatever is a little bit slow, so it just felt like it was the best one to just play against the Amulet, which was, like, expected to be the fifth deck, I think, right? Or the fourth or whatever. Like, it was an expected deck. So having a dedicated card for Amulet was good. Plus, also, Torpor Orb has some random applications. Like, you can put it on against like cards like Merfolk or whatever. Like, it's not exactly 100% dead anyway. Like, it has some small things. I'm saying this because, like if they're playing a Tishana deck with dragons or like, there's a lot of small situations that came to mind where Torpor Orb will be an acceptable cyber card. So that's on top of like obviously being the anti-amulet card.
Okay. Yeah, so another important stats that I guess we haven't mentioned to kind of show the dominance of
what we're going to talk about is a breach. Wasn't that what Javier said? And then you asked a question about Tron. Should we go back to that?
I want to actually look at that deck because I think it's cool.
Back a bit? Yeah, let's go back.
Yes, for sure. I was going to say, so there was we mentioned how like Murktide did poorly, but it was a group of Spanish players that came up with Izzet Breach that actually also did well the next day in the Classic qualifier. So what they did was they essentially played Fair Breach, but no Giganta Companion, so they played Counterspell, and they didn't have Murktide Regent, but had the card Underworld Breach instead. The goal was to...
We're calling this Fair Breach, but this is basically like the literally 70 cards, but minus Murktide plus Breach, right? Like, this deck does not make any concession to playing Breach, does it? Maybe one consider, but...
Yeah, I mean, Fair Breach was the... I mean, like, I guess 1 year ago, people were playing Jeskai Combo Breach and
I remember
Jeskai Fair Breach. There was, like, the two ways that you could play Underworld Breach in. A card that kind of, like, passed away now, but it's back with Niels Gutierrez von Porat, who, also I remember qualified in Athens with the Izzet Phoenix with Demilich, so definitely unconventional deck choices for him that pay off.
Thing here, though, like, so maybe there's, like, okay, so the best Murktide deck was the one without Murktide. To be fair, if you look at the spread, I mean, against Yawgmoth, Breach has to be better than Murktide, right? So I don't know about Rhinos, but against Amulet also has to be better than Murktide. Like, maybe just like maybe the Breach is better, no?
Against Amulet you can't. Murktide is very important against Amulet. Your goal is to
Breach kills people fast, right? It's like tap 5 mana kill.
I mean, the reason why I played 4 Murktide Regent was honestly because I tested a lot against Amulet, and I thought that was the best way. Ledger Shredder isn't good against Amulet, and this list plays 4. I think that also this list doesn't play Force of Negation, doesn't play Subtlety. I think that this list is for sure worse than Blue-Ray Murktide against Amulet Titan. But yes, the difference... Well,
it has to be much better against Yawgmoth. Like, this deck has to actually be... Like, Yawgmoth, they have to be careful because they just die to the Breach. Like, it's very hard for them to...
For sure, this deck is better against Yawgmoth. They have, of course, main deck Endurance and some sideboard Endurance, which obviously is your fear when putting the card Underworld Breach on the stack, whereas, Murktide Regent doesn't suffer Endurance that much, but you also have 4 Ledger Shredder, which ignore Endurance. And
this deck also has to be good against Rhinos, I guess.
Against Rhinos, of course. Yeah, you have the Ledger Shredder, so historically, Murktide, with many copies of Ledger Shredder, is good against Rhinos. So, yeah, I mean...
I'm looking more than that, like, because you can also just... Breach plus Unholy Hit counters the Cascade as well. Like, if you play Murktide, you can just, like, Otawara or Fire Eyes or whatever, and often you die, but here you can just do that, right? Like, that's also... I'm actually liking this direction. Like, I'm looking at this, and I think it makes sense, like, for Neil to actually play this over normal Murktide. Like, I think it makes sense in the metagame.
It made sense. It for sure made sense, and again, the results definitely speak in his favor. So if you're interested in Murktide, maybe, I'm definitely playing this deck on for my Friday Murktide column this weekend, because I want to explore this a little bit better. I would still say that Golgari Yawgmoth is favorable. Sorry, it's favorite over this, but definitely, you had a better shot than Murktide. Like, my plan against Yawgmoth, which I tested a bunch, was to have Subtlety and Force of Negation to counter the Cauldron Grist. I even had Pithy Needle in the side for Grist, and just focus on some, like, fast Murktide Regents, although obviously Ledger Shredder paired with Brother Zudand is also a decent strategy. So I would say that this deck is definitely a good one.
I will assume this deck's plan against Jamoth is actually not to not care that much about Grist, like just trying to put them on 12 and just kill them with 6 mana. Like I don't think they're trying to actually grind forever. Like I mean, and that's what I'm thinking of. Like maybe this deck is just built to do that. Like not trying to counter that much aggressively Grist or anything. Just be like, I'm gonna put you low life total and then just bang, breach, bolt.
It's hard to do Yawgmoth things when you don't have a high life total. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that, and also, how good is Grist if I don't have creatures that cost more than 1 in a game, right? Because I didn't draw Shredder or whatever. Like, Grist is also great because it cancels the Mortite thing situation. But like, if the game goes a little bit long and there's the cast 5 mana, well, that's 9 life. You can deal, 1 more than 12. Like, I'm pretty sure that should be a common pattern for this. I like how this deck looks. I would not mind trying this if I wanted to play a blue deck in Modern right now.
It looks
if your goal was to have a win percentage of around 49-50%, I think this is a good place to start. Jokes aside,
48.
Jokes aside with the Murktide hater.
What happened? Why is Meg with the Murktide hater today? What's going on? Am I out of a job? What's happening?
No, I mean weird. I just had a rough weekend. I just trying to. Still recovering there, but another. I just noticed this, and I kind of wanted to say that the top 16. If you make a cut to the top 16, there's only 5 non-Rhinos, non-Yawgmoth decks.
Wow.
Which definitely.
Wow. Fakanis did say that you have to play a top tier deck, and if you look at the results of the Brazilian and the European RC, it seems very much like the top tier is like. It's rock solid, like more than any other format. I feel like in Standard and Pioneer,
it's never been like this in Modern, and barely not other formats.
Like it's kind of been It's been a little bit like this in Modern before, but not to this extent. Like, before the ban was like a little bit like this as well, where there was a top tier, but it was a slightly larger top tier. Now we see like for sure that there's a proper grip.
It's like there's no tier 2.
I agree with that.
I feel like in Modern now there's no tier 2. There's like tier 1 and tier 3. Where on the other hand, Modern has always had a healthy, like a large amount of tier 2 decks. Always, like every time you will see often like this tier 2 decks doing actually fine. This Hammer decks doing fine sometimes. Like a lot of what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like all these decks being there, it just feels like tier 2 is disappearing. It's just tier 1 or just like people going rogue because their deck is not expected, which can actually win tournaments. I'm not saying it's impossible or anything, but it's like the mountain they have to climb is like higher.
I think the gap is just much larger for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How about guys? We talk about something that we discussed this morning.
What?
Because I think that we're kind of going in that direction. The tweet that I wanted to post and ask, what did you think about?
Harvey's breakfast.
I don't know what you're talking about actually.
I actually thought you were talking about Harvey's breakfast. All right, hang on. What? You're gonna have to. Can you catch us up?
No, So what happened? After the ban of Fury and Beanstalk is that the decks Yawgmoth and I think Amulet Titan made this like huge barrier of entry because no deck was like good against either except of Rhinos. So you kind of have this trio on top of the metagame, which kind of pushes everything away because these 2 decks, Yawgmoth and Titan, are so powerful that, again, like push everything away. The only one that can sneak in is Steamer Rhinos because, again, it's good against them. So this basically like what happened after the ban, which, again, Scam had a good matchup against both Yawgmoth and Amulet before the ban. So it was keeping the Modern metagame in check and kind of like you had a lot of decks that were good, so you had more diversity, you had more mostly more diversity, whereas now I think that's kind of gone because Scam was secretly just keeping the format together, and that's something that I thought even before they banned. I never really said anything, but I think that this result kind of say this, and I wanted to hear your opinion because again in this podcast I think it's nice to speak about those things. So I think that right now Modern is probably the worst it's ever been recently since Modern Horizons 2, and it's because of the ban list of Fury and Up the Beanstalk.
No.
Are you just saying things to make me defend Modern? This is No, I can't. I can't agree with that. Worst?
He's trying to trick you.
No, I think Modern's kind of nice right now. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was better before the ban, maybe, but like, I don't think worst. Like, we have had some truly miserable formats, surely. But
no, I said after Modern Horizon 2.
Yeah, even then, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. So, like, something that's important to me, I think the play patterns matter a lot. And, I mean, I don't love Amulet, but there are still interesting games that come from it. And I think Yawgmoth and Rhinos, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I don't think like a small number of decks is necessarily a very bad thing, so long as they play in interesting ways. I don't know if I mean I don't know if that's necessarily the case in Abundance here, but to say it's the worst because there are not many decks, I think is a premise that I wouldn't necessarily agree with.
I mean, yeah, for me the worst one I can remember is when Modern had like 20 million decks and none of them could interact with each other. Like you will have like Boggles versus Burn versus Infect versus Tron versus Turn 3 Kill Storm versus...
That's for sure we agree with.
And
yes.
they were like 14 playable decks, but it was like just like it was like so bad because you could not interact. Like I don't think the amount of decks is really related to that. I think that Modern is like, I think this Modern will have to be like Golgari versus Timur, like only in the whole metagame for it to be like, it will not even worse because the games are kind of fine. Yeah, it will not even be worse. I think those are major worse. I think Modern has just been very bad for like too long for this to be.
I mean, for sure. Before Modern Horizons 2, I was never playing Modern, and I just never thought that it was a good format. But after, I think the format became Legacy-esque with a lot of high good and interaction cards that made the deck, like the Red Murktide and stuff like that, good. And yeah, I don't know.
Murktide was less horrible in more recent history than it was before.
That is true. But so, I mean, I didn't like the Fury ban, right? Like that's something I said here in the podcast. I really felt strongly about Grief should be the ban because Grief is like, turn one kill, whatever. But Fury also, like, I mean, one thing we're seeing with Fury is like it kind of keeps things, but also it's just it was a flexible, decent sideboard card as well in many decks, or a tool to have for a lot of decks that actually, I think made the metagame richer or whatever. Like, it's not that easy to play around Fury. It's not like, Blood and Mortar played a lot of Furies, but the one or two off on the sideboard will actually help against like Golgari, right? And I just think the card was totally fine to have in the format, but I mean, I still think this is... I mean, obviously, it was not easy to prevent, like to see coming what will happen in Modern. Like it's very hard, it's impossible. I don't think anyone human can actually foresee this happening. But it was a possibility. Like that removing Fury will make some of the creature decks, specifically Yawgmoth. I'm saying Yawgmoth because if creature decks are good, Yawgmoth is good against creature decks. Yes, so the presence of Yawgmoth makes it so because. I mean, ideally, you can be like, well, we can take out Fury and then, there will be like Sue decks and aggro decks or whatever, or Hammer decks and blah, blah, blah. But that's not the case because Yawgmoth exists.
Different shot.
Right?
Yes.
So if you... this just destroys all decks like this. Like, if you're going to play like a rogue deck, might as well just be like, Living End or like Tron or whatever. But definitely not Sue because you're going to get Yawgmothed big time. And that's a lot of... it's because of Fury and also the fact that Grief is there still makes a Scam a reasonable choice in terms of mid-ranging, which, puts like you cannot play another kind of removal deck because it's going to be worse than Scam, right? So I think banning Fury, I didn't like it. I thought it was like a mistake in a way compared to Grief, but I also think the outcome was somewhat unfortunate in that regard. But I actually agree with Mango that the format is now worse than it was before the bans, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with that, but compared to like before that, like that's... I don't know.
No, definitely not. It's a decent format, but like, I mean, we were in a spot where actually all formats were fine, right?
Yeah.
I guess except Pioneer, but Pioneer also got better.
It's way better now.
Again, maybe you guys misunderstood me. I said worst since Modern Horizons 2.
No, we agree. No, we disagree with that. Like, I just don't think that like this format is worse than before they banned Fury and Up the Beanstalk. But both of those formats, like the two most recent formats, are significantly better than a lot of post-Modern Horizons 2 formats. Like, I just don't think they're that bad. Like, and I don't want to discount the Brazilian results here, by the way. Like, I don't think it's only Yawgmoth, Amulet, and Rhinos. I think Scam is a big part of that. And then if you look at that, Amulet
Yes.
tends to be the one that's least represented for various reasons. Particularly its barrier to entry. And then if you look at the other three, like Yawgmoth is less interactive clearly, but there's still a lot of interesting things going on with that deck, a lot of difficult decisions. And Rhinos and Scam are fundamentally interactive decks. Like they're good because they interact as well as put pressure. So like if multiple of the decks that are good in Modern are interactive decks, that's already so much better than how Modern has been for such a long time in terms of its existence after Modern Horizons 2, that I think that's great. I just don't think the gameplay from Scam or Rhinos is particularly bad compared to alternatives like Tron or whatever being good. So
Or Living End.
Tron and Living End being good is not great for gameplay, right?
Yeah, I think Living End is truly the worst play experience that you can have. In Modern.
Well, it's not great. I don't know. It's subjective as well. But for us, we like interactive gameplay, and it seems like I don't think Modern is very bad in that regard right now. Like, what's the problem?
It's not like Tron being great is, fun. Like, I mean, I'm a Tron fan, but like Tron is not like particularly fun gameplay. You just assemble Tron and cast cards.
I gotta say,
cards.
A lot of the time, like the devil is the one that's preferable. And some people they don't like that there are not so many interactive decks, not so many different interactive decks, but people are like, oh, you can only play one or two, but there's a number that's much worse than one or two interactive decks or one or two different good answers in the format. That's zero. Like this, maybe
Yeah, I just feel like Yawgmoth is like, let's say Yawgmoth is the best deck. I think Yawgmoth is a much more oppressive / repetitive best deck than Scam is.
Yes,
And Scam.
Like, I think Scam was a very good best deck. Like the same way Murtad. If Murtad was good, it would be actually a very good best deck as well.
Oh, it would be wonderful.
But I think Yawgmoth is not such, because Yawgmoth is more like, it's interactive. Like you can interact with it and whatever, but like it's more like oppressive.
Yes.
Like, decks that are bad against Yawgmoth are very bad, and you require like actual hit cards. These hit cards actually exist. There's a lot of stuff like this, and I don't think that speaks very well the format right now. But I mean, I think it's just fine. I don't think this Modern is great, but I definitely think.
Yeah, I agree.
I can also see if you like it. I don't know. I don't really can compare formats and quality that much unless I find it's extreme.
Yes.
But like if it was a PT of this Modern right now, I think there will be like I think just to be clear, the spots to play different decks exist. Like for this tournament, I will actually have played Tron, which is not among the top 5 decks or whatever, right? So there's still a spot. But just knowing that you're giving up so much by playing such an inferior deck, it's it's a tough feeling, I would say.
That's fine. I don't know. Like, I mean, I think there's just a lot of room between. I mean, I don't think it's great either. I think it's fine, and there's just a lot of room between not as good as the previous one and the worst. Like, I don't know. I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, no,
Relatively
absolutely. I mean, I remember playing the Modern Super League that I got invited to. I just played a lot of different decks, and I felt like I was actually like not giving up by playing different decks. Like I think playing different decks made a lot of sense. If this happened now, I'm pretty sure I would play mostly the top 4 decks almost every time. But at the time, I played like Hammer, Tron, Control, right? The Scam. Like I just play different ones, and were not perceived as the best ones.
For Color Beans, Scam.
Yeah.
You play
it's like
all.
but now it's a little bit more condensated.
It
is what it is.
Are we measuring formats by how much we like them based on how likely it is that we play something horrible, like, and that it's fine?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually a good.
Yeah, like
way
if you
of
think
saying
about it, like
know?
Modern, it's just like it's really tough to sell me on playing a deck that's not in the top tier, and then in Pioneer, like maybe you could sell me on doing it, and then in Standard, it's fine if we just show up with the most heinous deck with the worst cards that have ever been printed, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just said it as a joke, but I actually think
I'm not totally
common.
joking.
Like,
I'm for real.
Yeah, like if you can play a bad deck, perceived as a bad deck, without giving up too much equity, that's probably a sign of a good format. That might be true. I will have to think about it, but I think I kind of agree. I don't know. I think I agree.
Yeah, that's the problem with Modern, right? Because there's like Amulet and Yawgmoth looming over any like deck choices, punishing.
And Rhinos also, by the way.
That one not so much.
I feel like Rhinos is more like, I want to say exploitable. Like you can definitely build the deck.
I don't even think it's like exploitable. Like I think it's just like a very fair deck. Like it doesn't it completely destroy anything and doesn't get completely destroyed by anything. Like if you just ignore the existence of Rhinos, that would be totally fine. Like you cannot ignore something like Amulet or Yawgmoth, because if you turn up with the wrong thing against them, you don't even play the game. But like Rhinos is just a magic deck, you know? Like it's
Plus, you can also put the explosives instead of the void.
yeah,
and
you can
have
do
a
that,
fine
but like
matchup
it's
with
less
that.
like, polarizing. I think
Yep.
yeah, if you were just gonna pretend a deck
Yeah, I
didn't
feel
exist,
like-
it'd be Rhinos, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
I agree.
testing Murktide against Amulet a lot, it definitely felt like I needed to build like the exact 75 to
Yeah.
have a good plan to beat Amulet, and that's supposed to be one of the good matchup, and yet it was so hard.
Is that necessarily a bad thing?
And,
Don't you think that there's some element of challenge to that? Like,
Well, the 48%, requires a lot of matchups like this, I will say.
yes, that's true. But I'm saying like
You
it's
have
not
to
necessarily a bad thing.
yeah.
I don't know. You say it like it's bad, but I don't know if it is.
No,
It might
I
be.
didn't say it's bad. I'm just saying I was just saying how good is Amulet basically by saying that.
But maybe it's good.
Even
Like maybe it's good for the format that it's that good, but then there's a challenge to like trying to beat it. That might be good, right?
Yeah.
Am I coping? I don't know. It doesn't sound that bad to me though.
anyway, if you are testing for DRC, definitely get ready for those 3 decks. I think Rhinos, Yawgmoth, and
I'm
Amulet.
Scam. Come on, the Brazilians are real.
You wanna?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like why are we ignoring them because they're on the other side of Europe and that's where you live? I don't know.
You're
I
right,
would
you're
include
right, you're right.
Let's include Braktos. Please.
I will definitely include a scam.
Yeah.
Definitely. Do not count that out because it's a very good deck as well.
Yeah, pay attention to the Brazilian
I don't know.
results. I want to say that.
It's just that I tested and I found that Scam was weak, so that's why
I know, but I'm saying like they have
whereas I think
different
that
results
this
because they probably tested differently and found different things. So we should weight that heavily. In fact, maybe you should weight it
Yeah.
more because you
Exactly,
know what
if
you
you
know,
win
but you
because you
don't know
can- yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. You know.
Exactly. No, there's more you can learn.
Yeah.
In the different place. That's also a good life lesson.
Yeah.
All right, I think. Do you guys have anything else to say about those, in-depth modern talk that we had, or can we wrap it up?
I'm just really confused. I don't
It's
really understand like how today I ended up defending Murktide and Modern. It just like we didn't.
You got
I want to
tricked
say that
by
this was
Mango. I
not
think Mango
this was
tricked
not
you.
like scripted. Like we didn't plan to do this or anything. I just I don't know. That's just what I thought. Weird.
That's why you fell for it.
Yeah.
Mango just
Very confused. All right.
outclassed
I'm
you
just-
here. Yeah.
I'm just a little bit sad because I love modern, and recently, like, I just feel like it's worse than it was, last month or previously. Like, simply as that. Like, whenever I stream, I'm a variety modern streamer, and recently I've streamed only good decks, and I only got 4 ones. And
Okay,
whenever I
it's not bad.
stream whenever I stream a deck that isn't in these deck, I don't even get close. I always get like 2-3.
What's
You know?
harder? I don't know.
And I feel like I get it, but I don't know. This wasn't modern. This wasn't the modern format that I like to play. So this is why I am a little bit negative about this.
Okay. Oh, I mean,
Well, Mango,
Yeah.
sometimes things get a little bit worse than they used to be and still be good enough. So just enjoy the ride.
it's also it can also
Okay.
just be fleeting. Like I don't know. It doesn't seem like. How long have you noticed this trend? Maybe a couple of weeks, right? Like it's not that much of a
It
sample
can
size.
pass, yeah.
I don't know.
This weekend, by the way, there's the pre-release. I'm super excited. I
Oh,
will go
nice.
to the pre-release in my store, definitely on Friday and Saturday. So I hope to open some blue-red surveillance to add them to my Murktide deck.
Nice.
Or Breach deck.
Yeah, it could be.
I might
Breach
actually,
deck.
I don't think I will play release, but, I might. Who knows?
I think on Magical Line it'll come on Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know.
Yeah, those I will definitely play.
Yeah, then we have to test a lot.
We
for
have to play.
the
We get to
upcoming-
play. We get to play.
Yeah,
Ooh,
we get to
look
play.
at
I like that
this.
more. We'll be right
Okay,
back.
and
That's,
I
that's
guess
a signal, I
Oh
think.
yes, probably.
yeah, both Magical Line and MTG Melee went down together. So I guess
You have to
it's
go
time
to the
wrap it
wilds
up.
now. Doesn't mean, the gods are sending
It's-
a message. You have to go out to the
Touch
streets.
grass.
This is like this
Yeah.
time of the year. Wow.
No,
All right, I will
no,
touch some, I will go to the mountain and touch some grass and just chase some boars. That's what I'm going to do now.
Obvious learning.
I have some work
I'm actually
to
going to do
do.
it. Not kidding.
Anyway, again, thank you so much for listening to here. As always, if you want to support us, there's patreon.com/carnings. We didn't have any new patron recently, but if you're one of them, thank you so much for that, and I'll see you in the Carnage Discord. And that was it. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.
All right,
Thank
cheers.
you. Bye.